In this episode, we are going to be talking about all things marine electrical, and we are thankfully joined with the Yacht Riggers Master Electrician, ABYC certified Master Electrician, right? Isn't that a title? Master?
Just ABYC. Yeah, certified technician, that's all.
Okay, nice. Well, we were kind of like working our way through a little bit of electronics. We talked a little bit about the Arco Zeus regulator last time and fumbled our way through it a little bit. So we're definitely glad to have you here because we want to hear what the state of the industry looks like for all things electrical. Like, what are people looking for? What's hot? What's trending? You know, what do you see out there?
Energy, lots of it. The lithium batteries have really kind of set the stage to allow us to have massive amounts of energy on a boat now. It's not camping anymore. It's not like we're going glamping, I guess is what they used to call it. We're just able to do things that we weren't able to do years ago, like air conditioning, induction cooktops.
All of the above at the same time?
At the same time, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, last time I touched on that and how, like, 4 years ago-ish, you and I were talking about, hey, you were like, I'm going to put some lithium batteries in my boat. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And it was very scary at the time.
I remember people telling me, you're never going to run air conditioner on your boat. I used to tell, I'm designing a system. I'm going to run air conditioning on my boat. No, not possible. You're not going to do it. And look at where we are now.
You'll kill your batteries. Yeah. And we were at that point trying to run one unit to cool, just the cabin. Yeah.
And now we can do the whole boat.
Yeah.
Mind you, within reason.
Yes.
Of course.
Takes a lot of energy, so you take
Depends
a lot out,
on
you
the
got to put
boat,
a lot in.
the bank size. Yeah.
To expect it to be the same as if you're plugged in at the dock is unrealistic at this time. Hopefully, with technology advance, it'll be possible. But at this time, you can count on easily running it overnight with a little bit of additional charging from a mechanical source like an engine or a generator. And in some case, even just a solar with the amount of solar that we can put on.
Yeah. And we touched on before the alternator additional.
Of course.
For the stopgap, for everything else.
Right,
So.
exactly.
Yeah. And last episode, I think we talked about how, back in the day, the gold standard on, say, a multi-hull was to stick 3 or 4 330-watt panels on a small arch on the back, and how we kind of started pushing that boundary more and more and more, and how now it's really not that unusual to see 2.5 kilowatts, 3 kilowatts, 4 kilowatts on the boat in terms of just putting that energy back in.
Yeah,
and I think your initial words, energy, was a...
Right. And not only on catamarans, but on monohulls too. Like we've done 15, probably more on a monohull. Yeah. It depends on the size
of
the
Passport, we did 2.2 kilowatts on a Passport 51, and you could barely see it.
What about the 145?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I called that the Healy pad.
Yeah. That was big.
A little bit too much.
He wanted it.
He
did, exactly. Not within our design desires, but it worked.
But he loved it, and what I'll never forget is that I went sailing on another boat and went through the harbor, and I thought, oh, that's a boat like that one that we did, and then didn't see the solar at first, and then turned around and looked back and went, wait, that is the boat that we did.
Oh.
So I literally did not see the solar from like the front corner. Looking at it, it just blended right in with the boat. I didn't see it.
A little distance away, yeah.
And it wasn't a crazy distance. It was just a little bit over. And I went, oh, that's the same model that we just... And I was like, oh, that's him. So even I, who was thinking that it was too big and too much and saying, I don't know about this, about the aesthetics, not the function, but the aesthetics of it, I very quickly realized that even with my critical eye, I wasn't picking up on it.
And that was 2.4 kilowatts.
Yeah, on a mono.
On a 145 mono.
On a 45 mono. It wasn't like a 60 or anything.
Wow.
And he just sold the boat, so clearly it's not...
He sold it.
It wasn't a...
And it was a working
for,
system. And I don't know if I should say this part, but he did go through the storm. And there were other boats in the same anchorage that lost parts of their boat.
Wow.
In the same harbor, in the same shelter that he was in. He wrote it out, and he said that if I remember correctly, that there was a roof off one of the houses because he was in a neighborhood. One of the roofs of the houses went, and one of the other boats nearby went, and he still had everything on it. Wow. So nice. I don't advertise that it's hurricane resistant,
sure,
but it was.
Yeah, happened to be in that hurricane.
Right.
That's pretty sweet, especially when other people are losing roofs.
Yeah,
this is something.
Good to hear. Good to hear. So, and I mean, the beauty of the monohull too is that there's so much less space to cool. I mean, he had, was it 16,000 BTU unit that he could run?
We ran a 7 in the aft cabin,
Oh,
that-
I was gonna
okay.
say, I
Yeah,
thought
so
was-
that
could run that
design, he
real
could run
easily.
that every night.
Yeah,
No problem
no
at all.
question.
It just depends on the volume of the space we're trying to cool, the amount of solar panel. And one of the most common, maybe not a mistake, but a misconception is people, batteries store energy, and they say, with this amount of power, these amount of solar panels, I tell people, yep, no problem, you'll be able to run the air conditioner overnight. And I often hear, oh, I'll just add some batteries. And it's not as easy as that. It's just batteries are like a tank, and if you take the energy out, you gotta put the energy back in, and you gotta find a means of putting that energy back in.
in the amount of time that you have with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially with solar and how much sunlight is there and what time of year
Yeah.
is it. Et cetera,
And there's
et cetera.
usually a sweet spot where we can find, depending on the load on the boat, where even if we add some batteries, it's not really going to help you, because at some point within 24 hours, you're going to have to do some power management. You're going to have to look at your Servo GX and look, all right, well, I got 45% battery state of charge left. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I know that I'm going to use such and such amount of energy overnight for the aircon, so I probably got to start the engines to charge a little bit, or start a generator to charge a little bit. Just basic power management.
Right.
That does sound pretty basic, because then, let's heat up some water so I can take some hot showers. Let's do this, let's do that, and run it while it's doing that. Top off everything and use the power hungry things.
Yeah.
And then
I think
turn it
that
off.
that power management, like Andre just said, is probably one of the biggest educational
Yes.
portions of what we do, right? I mean, it's one thing to stick all this storage capacity on the boat and the charge capacity, but then teaching people how to manage it is an entire new, concept for some people. Because, like Andre said, hey, it's not going to be the same as when you're plugged into shore power, because shore power is effectively as close to limitless. You can run everything on the boat as much as you want, as long as you're not tripping breakers. It's going to be okay. But when you're on the hook and you're not plugged into 50 or 30 amp shore power, you have to be aware of the in and the out.
And if every day you're down by 10% and you don't recognize that until you're 6 days in,
Right.
that's probably bad.
Yeah. And thankfully, most people are aware of it right now, and we'll talk about it in more detail later. But managing that is largely thanks to this thing right here. It gives you a really good, clear indicator of that.
It's an incredible tool.
Yeah. Something we're seeing too, though, talking about energy, right? Energy density is. It seems like lithium batteries keep getting more compact and actually getting cheaper too, right?
Cheaper, thankfully, yes.
Yeah. Because I remember back 5 years ago, it was a whole other animal. I mean, you're talking about 600 amps of batteries was going to cost you a heck of a lot.
I forget the name of the law, but there is some type of a law that mentions that, and it talks about having the price and size, because as technology is invented and used to invent the next thing, then the old one is less. And so you can look at something now and look at it 10 years from now, and it will be smaller and less expensive.
Right.
And so everything, it's the early adopters that have to pay for the advancement, and they pay that premium, but then that premium gets put towards production efficiencies and ramping up the ability. So then that shrinks it all back down. I don't remember the name
there's
of
one
it,
for
but
capacitors, right? There's another one for RAM and CPU speed. I forget.
Right.
The name of
people
the
they're
law.
named after.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
Moore's Law, one of them or something.
there you go.
Morse? Is that what it is?
It might be Moore's Law.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
We need to.
We'll have to Google it right there.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So would you say that whenever you look at the state of technology, that the ability for a boat to be able to store power far outstrips so far our technology to put power back in? Is it a lot easier? Because it seems like we have these lithium banks, but getting them juiced back up.
No,
seems to be a problem.
it's pretty much on par.
Okay.
Most people don't take advantages of all the sources that are available. For example, alternators. But typically, when you do batteries, the batteries will have either internal BMS or external BMS. There's a limitation with those BMS is a recommended charge rate. So, for example, let's say you have 4 batteries, and the recommended charge rate for each 4 batteries is 100 amps. So now you have the capability of charging at 400 amps safely. The maximum is probably higher than that, but usually we kind of tell people stay within the recommended range. So 400 amps, you can easily do that with 2 alternators. And I'm talking about 12 volts. The power is even more substantial at 24 and 48. But as of right now, it's we can design systems that take full advantage of this. And what we do when we increase the scale of the energy system on a boat, for example, that Leopard 50 we just did, that's a 48 volt system. So we had to add more battery to maximize the amount of energy that we can put in. So it's pretty balanced at the moment, if it's designed well.
Right.
I think
that's key.
the conception that you're touching on there, though, is because so many people focus on just solar and batteries, and assuming that, say, I have 2,000 watts or 2 kilowatts of solar, and my battery bank is X, I'm going to be able to produce this much every day, just not accounting for seasonal differences, cloudy days,
A little
weather
bit of
systems
shading
coming
from
through,
your
some
boom
shading.
or whatever. you know.
There's significant imbalances there. It's really easy to get out of balance if you don't, like Andre said, kind of use all the stuff that's available: alternators, generators, chargers, all that.
And also, as
stuff.
soon as you, on most boats, with the space that you have available, you can design a system that you would not need an alternate source of energy except for when you want to use the air conditioning. The air conditioning is kind of the one defining point where, all right, now I need an alternate source of energy. And again, depending
Beyond
on
the solar.
beyond the solar. And
Okay.
depending on the design. Like if you have a small cabin with a DC aircon, like my boat, I can do it if I have perfect conditions and I don't use the inverter too much, like for cooking and things like that. I can do 2 or 3 nights in a row, but at some point I have to add.
For me, it's hot water.
Hot water.
Making too
yeah.
much hot water
Huh.
is the thing that like pushes us over the edge.
That's
And sure,
right.
like if say we want to bake something for 2 hours,
That's right.
totally forget about
Yeah.
it. Then you need an alternate source.
But a classic cruising boat,
Yes.
the boat that I had 15 years ago with my lead acid batteries or whatever. I mean, with the systems we have today, you could go indefinitely with that and not even worry about an alternate source of
Yeah.
power.
But you're more like average cruising boat,
Yeah.
that size boat.
But now,
Indeed.
I mean, this time of year, I'm not plugged in. I haven't been plugged into shore power in 2 weeks now.
Yeah,
I
but
just
if we
haven't needed it
if
if
we
I'm
talk
not
about-
running air conditioning.
Right, and if we talk about the small, and that's exactly right. And if we talk about even smaller than that, like my RV that we did, I haven't been plugged in since we put solar on the top of it. I
Right.
literally have not needed to, have not cared to.
Yeah.
It goes through its cycles. It does its thing. It's never down very far. Whether I'm in it, whether I'm not, I just
Right.
check it on it every once in a while, walk by it, and do the Bluetooth. And
What's
go,
the
"Yep, still
highest
doing good."
draw thing you have set up on there?
Well,
It's
again,
not much.
Yeah, I was
if
thinking
I
it's
was going to
probably
use a
not.
toaster oven, it would probably,
sure.
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, a lot of
but
Pop-Tarts.
no,
Yeah.
the highest draw is just the fridge and the
Right.
freezer,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
that's always on. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
easily keeping
So like
up with
Andre
that.
said, like your traditional cruising boat that doesn't have all the, electric galley, air conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
electric hot water heater, all that stuff. I mean, yeah, absolutely. You can make it run
Mm-hmm.
an autopilot 24 hours a day, and the solar
Right.
will replenish enough that you don't have to worry about alternate charging sources.
Mm-hmm.
It's the luxuries that
Absolutely.
push
You're
us
powering
into
the
this.
luxuries.
Like
Yeah.
like the tanning bed on my future
Absolutely,
yacht
yes.
when I
Right.
go up
Yes.
north.
yeah,
okay.
and the hot tub.
That's right. Yeah,
Tanning
that's right.
bed, then the hot tub.
Yeah.
My wife does actually have it's called a hot sock. It is a sauna. It's a sleeping bag type sauna thing, and it pulls a lot of juice.
I have
Yeah,
a
that
hot
sounds
tub.
like it would.
What?
What's that?
Is it
Carrie
like,
has
it's like
a
a
hot
sleeping
tub.
bag? And it squishes
It's like a
around your
sleeping
neck?
bag that you lay in. It's got all these little infrared cells inside it, and apparently it's healthy. Does stuff that you zip it up and you lay
Good for
inside it
circulation.
inside this like cotton cloth thing, and then
I
it
mean, do you have
gets
to
your
drain
body
it?
temp.
Do you have to
way
drain it
up.
when you're done?
No, I mean,
Yeah.
if I did it, I haven't
Right.
tried
What
it.
if I did?
I'm a little scared to try it, but apparently
funny.
it's But I know it pulls a lot. I haven't actually checked the specific, but I've noticed the battery bank go down. I mean, I'm like, maybe we should turn shore power on for an hour or two. But
So you,
Carrie has a
hot
tub. I was going to say hot tub, but it's a tub. But now we're looking at a hot tub. She loves hot tubs.
See,
I do
love
too,
hot
but-
tubs,
you have the tub on the boat?
Tub in the boat, yeah. She's tried it
Where
a couple
is it?
times. It's inflatable.
Oh,
Yes.
nice.
Yes.
I've seen
So-
those ice baths that are like that.
Yeah.
But not the hot tub.
And is it using salt water? Or do you just like
Seen
use,
them on
use a
Amazon.
live well pump up to
Water
The
maker.
The when we're at the dock.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. But if you were out somewhere theoretically,
Water maker.
man,
Yes.
Just take a scoop.
Hey,
Yeah.
40 gallons an hour, man. Like,
right?
think about that.
Right.
You run the water for 2 hours, you have 80 gallons of water. I think
Right.
that's probably enough
Yeah.
to hot tub run.
I
Like,
did
it's
see.
wild.
I'm not on a tangent, but I did see a monohull that had it was a big enough one that it had the center cockpit and the aft cockpit, and the aft cockpit had scuppers that would close and you could
Yes.
fill it.
What was
The
his name?
Discovery.
Rose.
Discovery
Discovery. Yeah.
55. Discovery
Yeah.
55.
Paul. Yeah.
Grandel?
Yeah, he had that. So, yep.
That's too funny. What about whenever you look at putting power back into your bank past solar? What do you think is the best way to do that? And again, I know it's like system dependent and these kind of things, but what
Yeah.
do you tend to kind of gravitate towards?
I really like high output alternators because it's right now everything is focused on the DC. So I like to charge the batteries with DC energy. We can also extract a lot more wattage out of a high-quality alternator than we could even a generator for that matter. But if the boat already has a generator, typically I design around that, and or maybe add high output alternators. What I do like about high output alternators is not only can you charge while you're at anchor, running the engines, but the best part about it is if you do a lot of moving around, you charge your battery bank as you're going from point A to point B. And you get to your destination with a full battery bank, and then you're in the air overnight, no problem at all. So a lot of people in the Bahamas do a lot of hopping.
Yeah, or
it's-
like the Virgin Islands or something like
Right,
that.
exactly.
You're going line of sight
Yeah.
cruising,
Mhm.
and you're going to stop at this anchorage, sleep,
Yeah.
wake up, have some, and then go to the next one. You would always be top.
And after the batteries, or after the engines have been running for about an hour, you're probably close to full anyway because you got sun. You can fire up the
Right.
AC
Sure.
and be running it
Mhm.
completely
Yeah.
neutral.
Yeah. So you don't
Arrive
have
at
to
the
go far,
anchorage
and-
with
right.
air conditioning.
And the
on.
other
Yeah.
benefit, the one that my wife loves the most, is the fact that you can run whatever you want aboard the vessel while you're underway because you have unlimited power. Well,
Right.
not unlimited, but you know
So
what I
you
mean.
could theoretically, bake the turkey.
Mhm.
Yes, and we did. We
right.
did 1 year going up, the
Mhm.
coast, and then air conditioning. We run the air conditioning full blast, so the kids and the
Mhm.
families in comfort. And while charging the batteries
Mhm.
on top of that.
while still topping off
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
You mentioned something earlier, and I think sometimes, well, I know sometimes you you get a little advanced a little quickly. You quickly rattled off about 100 amps and having multiple batteries and how that means you can charge more. Can you break that down a little bit for people who don't maybe understand what that means? Because let's take it a step back and say, okay, when you're plugged into shore power, what is your average battery charger on a boat charging at rate? Is it 100
Average
amps,
as a typical
120?
boat in the marina right now,
Yep.
Mhm.
like 30 to 40, something like that, 50, 60.
So that's
Let's
the
just
rate
say
that
30
we're
to
charging
60
at.
amps.
So 60
Yeah.
amps.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
For
you're
the
never going
typical
to, and
stock.
each individual battery has a charge rate acceptance limit, meaning how many amps you can put into it at a given time, and that is somewhere around 100 amps.
It depends. It depends on
Depends
the
on the battery, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, certain lower, weaker batteries can take lower charge.
Yeah.
And so when somebody most people have multiple batteries in their bank, as you put those batteries together, does it matter series or parallel whether or not that acceptance rate goes up?
Yes, and
I guess it's a wash because the voltage goes up if you series them.
sure, it's a C rating of the battery
Yeah.
capacity. But just to keep it simple, without
Do you
the
want to
series
understand what a C
parallel,
rating is? 'Cause
Right.
I don't.
Oh, a C rating.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Z rating.
Right.
Absolutely.
Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
we won't go there. All right. So the battery is the core of the electrical system.
Right.
It's pretty fairly simple. That's the energy storage.
Yep.
And as we talked about, if you have 4 batteries, which a recommended, let's say the maximum is 150 amps and the recommended is 100. If you have 4 batteries, you have a safe potential of charging and discharging of 400 amps. So then we can kind of design a system around that.
Mhm.
A Quattro full load, I think it's close to 300 amps.
A Quattro is an inverter charger. In case anyone doesn't know what that is.
Um,
I'm going to translate for
Yeah,
all
yeah,
you.
yeah.
That's right.
But like for
So
example,
wait, a Quattro's full load is what, sorry?
I'd have to look at the calculation again, but I think it's in the 300s watts.
It can
Or sorry, amps.
It can charge the bank.
No. That's discharge.
Discharge,
When
okay.
you're running
You're
everything
using it.
aboard.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the
and you won't
charge
be-
rate's like 120, isn't it?
The charge rate is 220.
220.
But
okay.
the problem is that's the rating. It's going to heat up. It's going to derate itself, and you're not going to get that full.
Okay.
Same thing when
It's like
you're
a processor.
same thing when you're pulling it. You're going to overload it because it's going to heat up and it's going to derate itself. So,
Yeah.
but again, we won't go there.
Sure.
Okay, so it's
Well, we can go there another
thermoregulating.
time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So thermal
yeah.
regulates. You only have so much throughput, and then you're probably. So how would that differ than the
So-
amps coming through it on like a?
So now
alternator?
let's just talk about let's say a 40-foot catamaran with 2.5 kilowatts of solar. We have 2 high output alternators, and we have a maximum of 400. Let's say we can pull 180 amps, or let's just say 200 amps aside from each alternator. Well, anything that we get from the solar is going to be in excess, and it's going to exceed our limitation. So again, this device here has a fancy feature called DVCC, where we can set a threshold to the system that says, do not charge my batteries past this amount. And it's going to regulate all the other charges to keep it at that maximum.
Does it pick on any one individual charge source, or does
I-
it evenly kind of? Are you not sure?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I-
yeah. So it's built into the program
could-
somehow. Right.
Yeah, I think it's the inverter first, but
Which would make sense, I guess.
that would make sense. Yeah, and
yeah.
that's only if you're running the genset, of course. But
Right.
Right.
So as a point of reference, though, so we're talking about 2 high output alternators or 1 high output alternator. If somebody just fired up a 8 kilowatt generator and it was the Quattro trying to charge the batteries, 220 is the rated output, but it's probably going to derate down
Just
to
call it
somewhere
200
in
or
the
something.
200,
180,
200
yeah.
180. Okay. And so we can, with 250 to 200 amp alternators, effectively double the charge rate or the speed that you can top your batteries back up. Yeah. Okay.
Well, how can it take in so much more from the alternators than it can from shore power? Is it because it's DC? Is it DC?
I can't technically answer that. I mean, you could do the same thing on shore power if you added a whole bunch of chargers.
More chargers.
Yeah,
Oh, that's what it is.
Right.
Okay.
Because shore power is giving you power, but it's only outputting how much the
It's
charger
only
is gonna
using,
do.
and we keep saying the word Quattro. The Quattro is, I mean, some people may not know
Yeah,
this.
no,
It's
please
a
define it.
Victron product.
Yeah.
And so the Quattro is a inverter charger that has a typically 5,000 watt rating, right?
It's volt amps, but let's call it watts.
Now I'm more confused. It's awesome. Yeah. Volt amps. Okay, so a 5,000 watt inverter charger that can invert or supply you with AC voltage of approximately 5,000 watts. It will convert DC up to AC at about 5,000 watts, but also then can charge the charger portion of it is taking shore power or generator power and charging your bank at X number of volts. But where with alternators, we have 2 different sources that are supplying straight DC current.
That's okay. So you're bypassing that altogether then.
Completely
charge control.
neutral. The Quattro has nothing to do with the charging when you're running the alternators.
I
Yeah.
see. Okay. And so when you said at the beginning you like to move things over to DC, or that's kind of what you're seeing more and more in the industry right now, right?
Well,
Like
when you're
AC
off
to
grid,
DC.
when you're plugged into shore power, then everything's AC.
Sure.
But most people that we do these systems on, they don't want to be on shore power. They want to be out
yeah,
exploring
off grid,
and adventuring.
baby. Yeah, get out.
So at that point, everything is dependent on DC. The core power is DC because we invert the DC power to get AC. So I'd prefer to charge directly to the battery bank straight in DC,
And-
as opposed to
Cool.
creating AC, then to convert it back down to DC, only to convert it again to extract it.
And
Yeah,
the little
and
bit
there's
that I
efficiency
know,
loss.
that's what
Yeah.
I was going to say. The little bit that I know is that every time if you take 100 and convert it over to this, you've lost some. You don't get 100
yeah,
over
it's just
here.
entropy. Yeah.
Right. Like you,
Yeah.
you get some bleed offs everywhere.
Heat.
And so
Yeah.
the more times you try to change it around, the less you have of what you were trying to change in the first place. And that's my layman's understanding of it.
Yeah.
So
As a matter of fact, I want to convert my generator into a DC generator. I just want to hook a big, giant alternator to it instead of the power head, the AC power head that's on there. Put an Arco Zeus on it and
Right.
charge my batteries. Yeah,
Right.
because the engine still works, but my power head is messed up.
If
So
any of you listeners heard that and come out with a product in the next 6 months, we're coming for you.
That's
Yeah.
right. So you really like doing the high output alternators.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes you're running that through Zeus. That's a really cool product. We had, again, that was sitting in the last show. We'll circle back around on that for sure at some point. Outside of that, is there, like, I have literally never seen you guys install a wind generator. Did you ever do those?
we did a long time ago.
Yeah.
I
mean,
had
we
one
did
on
quite
my
a
boat.
few.
I
Just kind of
actually
phasing
had
out?
2, but in the trade winds on a classic, like at my first boat,
Mhm.
sure, that would run my fridge overnight. But in today's energy, hungry boats and systems, I mean, it's just.
Can you imagine
it's just
struggling to
noisy.
run a fridge overnight at this point?
Right.
Like needing that one $4,000 part to
Oh.
run your fridge overnight, like
which has
that
like
makes a noise.
which has the draw of like an incandescent bulb,
It's-
right?
yeah.
It's literally like trying to just
Oh.
power a bulb.
So
Wow.
yes, it is. If you want a very minimalist, if you have a minimalist approach, and you could do it off lithium as well. But if you don't plan on running, if you have a small inverter, you don't plan on running air conditioning, hot water, anything, and you're just like this hardcore minimalist, sure, every little bit counts, and it's a cool way of charging it. But the system today that we can design with the batteries that we have and the energy that's available is kind of like way down here now, and it's
Right.
just it's
That
not
makes
worth the
sense.
racket that they make. That's the other thing.
Right.
and
That's
also
kinda annoying.
latitudes, right? Like if someone is going to really high or low latitudes, it's very
where
different
the solar
from
is
someone
not going to be
who's-
efficient
Right.
for you.
who's going to just cruise the Bahamas and the Caribbean.
Right.
Like the sun there is awesome, cooks you.
Yeah.
But you go way north or way south, that
And
changes.
I'm also
and it's
pretty sure
windier.
you will see us install one soon.
Oh, really? Oh, one's coming up.
There
Did
is
you-
one coming up.
All
There's an
right.
interesting one coming up.
Oh
Yeah.
boy!
Mhm.
Oh, that
Uh-huh,
one. That's
yeah.
right.
It is
check
a
it out.
large wind generator that
Oh,
is going to be
wow.
going on.
have a wind farm on the
We
boat.
feel slightly too large, but
Maybe a
we
little bit,
are.
but-
We're going to check it out when it arrives.
Well, we'll definitely have an
Yes.
episode on that. That'll be interesting.
And you were
I wanna
talking
see
about
it.
the advances in electrical. This is just what we do here, but I mean it's just going far. Like now the hybrid engines are becoming more and more popular, where
Yep.
they couple between the main engine and the sail drive. You can put a power head in between there, or not a power head, but
like electric motor.
yeah,
DC motor?
it's a permanent magnet electric motor that can act as for propulsion as well as charging. Beta Marine makes one. Integral just released one. I think they're going to launch it at Metz next week.
So while you're sailing, you would have the prop turning and making power,
That's
right? It's
You
a
can
hydro
engage and
generator.
disengage
Like
it.
Right.
regen.
You can
Yeah.
say,
So
I want that or I
You
don't.
can run the engine, run that power head as a generator,
Mm-hmm.
do the same thing, charge and propel from the engine. You can run the electric portion for propulsion only, and as you're sailing, you can use that electrical head with
To
the screw to regenerate. It's
How much
exceptional.
Makes sense.
How much longer? Have you seen one physically? Yet? How
Uh,
big is the
I think
device?
like it's not.
So it adds.
And
like,
it's a smaller
transmission.
diesel
It's
than
like,
you would normally have.
Well, it's
too,
like the
isn't it?
size of an extra transmission on the back of your engine.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
It's
But
an
But
extra
the, but the
section.
diesel that would normally be on that same boat would be smaller, or would be bigger than what
Not
this one is.
necessarily.
Or
You
no?
know, I haven't looked into
Yeah.
it that much, just because we haven't
I'm-
gone down.
The ones
that
I've
I'm
seen
basing
had
that
a
on car
full-size-
technology because they always have like a 1.2 with
right.
something.
So-
They don't
Yeah,
have a
it's
big
true.
motor with it. They
I
have
think
a-
it's designed though that the motor can run as 100%.
Mm.
As ignore the diesel side will just run
and not be a,
unassisted.
a hybrid
Not
at that
need to be
moment.
assi- but can be assisted, but
Sure.
doesn't have to be.
Got it.
Right, because your batteries are really low. It would
Mhm.
suck to be on a lee shore and need like full horsepower.
Yeah, that would be fun.
So those systems are pretty clever, and I
Yeah.
think that's the way
Mhm.
moving forward. It's somewhat coming into the market now.
Well, like hydro generation is a lot more efficient than wind generation because of the density of the fluid.
Mhm.
Like the torque that can be generated is substantially more on water than it is on wind.
Yeah, yet we haven't seen. I mean, Watson C
Watt,
has
Watt,
one,
Watt
but
and C
that's pretty much
was
the
good,
only.
and it did good for
What was
David
his name?
David Pancratz.
Pancratz. So, nice.
And he just completed the around the world.
Yep.
He just completed the arc with it, and it powered him.
But he was
So-
also a fairly traditional basic.
He
pilot.
was. He was
using
very
it to-
simple, and he was
yeah.
trying. He was
Yeah.
not overly complicated on the
Right.
boat.
I wonder
feel
how
like
long
you get-
until orcas start just
Oh, I
crushing
know.
those things.
Yeah, we're going to need some kind of orca defense systems on our
Right.
boat. You'll be outfitting those before you know it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of cruisers out there, you have a lot of retirees who are used to certain levels of comfort, and they're trying to find that on their boat to some degree. And then it seems that you're getting a lot more people who are doing the work from home, or in this case,
Yes.
work from boat. And they're going to need power to be able to do that, to keep those laptops running. And if they're graphic artists or whatever, these laptops can have pretty big draws on them as well.
And the cell boosters and all that other stuff that they use.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. So, you just have more and more needs. I wear a health monitor. They're not sponsoring, so they don't get to be named. But I wear a health monitor. It gives me stats, and it lets me know 24/7 what's going on with my body. It's cool. If you're into stats, that really helps. Gives me an indication of things. I kind of liken that a little bit to what this guy's doing, right? It's giving you the stats, what's going on in your boat. You have this little touch screen right here. It is touch, right? And you get this color screen, full readout on everything that's happening. How does that interface with this, and kind of what's the overview of this system, how it operates?
Well, the interface between these two is just this is the screen for this. This is the brains. It's called the Servo GX. They have a successor to that now. It's called the Icrano. I think I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's an all-in-one where the hardware is behind the screen.
Oh, cool.
But it's basically the central hub of the Victron 6 system, and it does a lot.
This does a lot. This is just the screen.
That's correct.
Okay.
As someone who has a lot to learn, having this thing on my boat is incredibly helpful. Just because
Yes.
it gives me a really good
It
visual.
also does a
overview of
visual.
what's going
And
on.
It's
Yes.
like showing the little
Yeah.
flow of electrons
It dumbs
going
it
this
down for
way.
me.
You're
I'm
like,
like, oh look,
okay, it's an animated
current,
little thing.
current going
Yeah.
out,
See?
current
Yeah.
leaving
Yeah.
batteries,
PV.
current going
I know
back
what that
in.
means.
Yeah.
And
So, and we talked about power management earlier, and this is your
Yes.
guide to understanding the power management.
Because the
aboard a vessel.
predecessor to this was the 712, right? Or the 7, the BMV series,
sim-
right?
a
And
ba-
it still
battery
exists,
monitor, yeah.
right? And it's just a round screen. You would have to toggle
I've
through
seen those,
a digital
yeah.
readout that says
Just
battery
monochromatic.
voltage is
Yeah, just
13, solar input is currently this, whereas this gives you all the information on
we've come a
one
long way
screen.
from the little needle that
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, for sure.
Although I
Steam
still
gauge.
have one of those in my boat, and I still like it. I don't know why, but
There's something
There's
satisfying
There's something
about it.
analog
yeah.
is
Right?
satisfying. We all
Yeah,
know
it just
that
is.
even
Like
audio
watching
files
amp
still
draw
do.
from the
Yeah.
DC
I
bank.
had an analog on my wind generator, and then I had a Link 2000 battery monitor, which had big green numbers on it.
Very
My
fancy.
first boat. Yeah, very
Yes.
fancy.
Yeah, it's like, oh, cool.
It was
look at
state of
these.
the art when I installed it.
Right.
Exactly.
But this, to circle back, I mean, this gets information from effectively anything to do with the battery bank and power coming in and power going out, right? I mean that, and the inverter
Not
as well.
this particular piece of equipment. This is the hub where all of these pieces, and they have to be Victron.
Sure.
Okay.
Actually, that not untrue, because you can interface other devices like a Ruby tag, which is Wi-Fi, and it'll give you temperature. So there's other third-party devices that you can
We
link
very
up to
poorly
this.
touched base on
Yeah,
the
we
tag
tried.
last
Is that right?
episode.
Okay.
We didn't even
Yeah.
know what one of the things was on the
Yeah.
box.
Like, it
We're
does
like,
three
what is
things.
that? Yeah,
So you have all the components: your
Okay.
MPPTs, the inverter, the shunt, which measures the current, or the BMS if you have a BMS, and that will measure the current via shunt inside the BMS. But it takes all of this data and brings it into one central hub, and from that you can control, analyze, record. I mean, there's just
Entertain.
yeah.
Entertain,
you're-
yeah.
right,
Log in
yeah,
remotely.
moving Stuff.
log in remotely. That's another nice.
Oh,
nice-
so you can check on your boat from somewhere else.
yes, or the customer's boat, which is really nice for
Oh,
me.
that's
As long as you have Wi-Fi,
Yes.
it doesn't necessarily. In fact,
But if
Can
your
you-
boat's pulling a cell phone signal, a cell signal,
Then you can convert that to a hotspot, and then
It
Yeah,
kind of
right.
works. It's finicky to
Oh,
get
is it?
on a hotspot from my
Right.
experience, but it is
Interesting.
doable. I've done it.
hotspot's actually a little tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
wow, okay. So yeah, you
Next
really
year.
need to be able to. I know, right? Exactly.
Next year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just give it a 6 months.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then this, when you do have it connected to the web, there's what's called the VRM, and it has graphic data, charts, and you can see your daily usage if you're consuming more or less, your solar collection. If
Yeah.
well, you like data,
Yeah.
so
I mean,
you'd be
that's-
all over that.
Gives me an idea of what's going on.
This is mine right now. I
Oh,
mean,
you
I
can
just
see your boat.
checked mine, so I can
Oh,
see.
sweet.
My batteries are at 54%. It was pretty cloudy today, pretty overcast, and
Can you throw a screen record on that real fast?
Sure. Yeah. Let me do that real
I'll
quick.
pop that into the video. Yeah, that's really cool. So this gives you.
Yeah. So it's updated from 3 minutes ago, and my AC load. So I know the no one's cooking right now. It's only 199 watts, 200 watts.
Kids are
And-
watching a movie, so that's
Yeah, that's probably what that is, right? Yeah. And
Bree's
then-
not in her.
Yeah, if the hot
thermal
sock was
bag.
on, this would probably be around
Be
1,000.
pegging.
And so no solar charges coming in right now. Obviously, it's night, and the DC power drawer is showing on here too. So it's just a really cool little screen. I can go back and look at history, and see my solar input for the day. Etc. Andre could probably explain a whole lot more with what's going on here, but anyway, that's
you can
it's
see
really
your
handy
system
because
at a
I know
glance.
exactly what's going on my boat miles
Right.
from here, just by.
I thought that
logging
was
on my
really cool in my
smartphone.
solar system on my house was able to do that, but it's even better on a boat. In my
Yeah,
opinion. like
for
it's
sure.
even cooler.
Yeah. Especially something that moves with that many moving parts.
Right,
right,
like
right.
being able to keep an eye on that. That by
There's
itself is
one thing that I really enjoy about VRM is the fact that it records the data. And with lithium, with a shunt that's properly programmed, if you don't hit full or bottom, hopefully you don't hit bottom. Well, it's not that big of a deal if you hit the bottom, but
I've done it.
bottomed
Yeah,
out.
me
Not
too.
just the boat. but
0%.
the-
Yeah.
Me too.
so if you navigate in the middle of the state of charge range of a lithium battery, it's easy for it to lose synchronization. And the only 100% definitive way of knowing that the lithium is full is when it enters the 14 volt range. Like if you can watch it slowly climb, and all of a sudden, very rapidly, like meaning like 15 minutes or so, you'll see the voltage start to rise and the amperage start to decrease as the battery's accepting charge. And that is a sure sign of, yes, we're at 100%. As a matter of fact, there's a
Huh, that's
feature
interesting.
in the BMV 712 or battery monitors where when it reaches a certain voltage for a certain amount of time, it's a signal, hey, we're full. I've seen cases where it showed 50%, but the batteries were completely drained. And this is maybe a topic for a more technical, a different video, but it's also important to look at the voltage in relation to the state of charge. At any time, if I see that my voltage is below 13, something's like, something's
Yeah.
not right here, especially if I've been in the middle range of the state of charge and I haven't peaked. it's an indicator that, hey, something's probably not right.
Yeah, not quite. Yeah, well, again, that's like my health monitor. It's like,
Sure.
hey, your respiration rate's changing. Maybe you're getting sick.
Right.
And when you say in sync, is that in sync with the other batteries?
In sync with the actual state of charge of the batteries.
Oh, just with
So,
itself.
Well, the
with-
individual cells inside the batteries.
Well,
right.
the cells as a group,
Right.
so
Okay.
the pack as a whole.
Right.
So back in the lead acid days, the slope between 0 and 100% was steeper. Now it's fairly shallow with lithium. So back in the day, oh geez, I'm at 12.4. That's roughly such and such a state of charge.
Okay.
And it's fairly reliable. This is under no load. Like if you're pulling a big load on the batteries, that changes as well. But if you're
Yeah.
kind of at a resting state of the batteries, you can look at the voltage and say, these batteries are at 50%. But you can't really do that with lithium because the range from 20% to 90% is like 0.3 volts.
Weird.
It's one of the
So-
beauties of lithium,
Well,
though,
that's
because
exactly, because
that
it can-
voltage sag is not there.
Right. So,
Oh, cool.
like the old style batteries on a flashlight, the flashlight would get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, and now they're bright until they're not, and they shut
Right.
off. And they
Yeah.
go, that's it.
Oh,
and
that's
it's the
fascinating.
same brightness
Wow.
throughout the entire thing, and then they just
Yeah.
shut off.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty and the.
But you can
the
run it
curse.
for longer at full tilt.
That's exactly
until you
right.
hit that
It'll
point.
go for
Right.
3 times as long as the other one.
Yeah.
At full brightness the whole time, as
Right.
opposed to full brightness for the first 20 minutes, and
yeah,
then it
diminishing
slowly
returns. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Something
Cool.
I love in terms of, I woke up this morning at about 70%, and now I can see that my consumption today was 10.5 kilowatt hours, and I only produced 8.7 kilowatt hours. And so my batteries
That's why
went from
it's-
roughly 70% down to 55%. And so it's just, it's amazing how well the app, I mean, there's a whole lot more to
Yeah.
it than that, but it's everything that I'm currently logged into this device on my boat, but able to see what it's telling me. And yeah, just really makes my life easier.
Oh,
Because
that's
this was
sweet.
hard for me.
Yeah.
Not like intuitive, like for Andre.
Yeah, I mean, a nice graphic user interface that this thing has, make it make sense. That's sweet. I'm sure one day you'll be saying, "Hey, Victron, what's my no?"
Right.
Be talking to
Right.
it.
Kind of like MS
Another
DOS
device to
versus
talk
like when
to.
Windows 95 came out, and suddenly you
Yeah.
had like a screen that you could click on
Yeah.
icons, and
Right.
it was
Yeah, it really helps you digest what's happening. That's cool. Anything else going on in the industry how about anything exciting on the horizon that you mentioned the hybrid electric motors? Obviously, that's really cool. I think there's interesting implications one day for sailing when that technology gets solid, dependable, cheaper, easier. At some point, you kind of wonder if you might only be sailing because you enjoy sailing in it for the fun of it. But
That's already the way it is, right?
And
no, sailing's not dead. Don't say that. It's
No,
at least
you-
20 years off.
Sailing is done because people enjoy it.
No, I mean past, but then you have the adventure. Like, whenever you look at an anchorage that's far flung, they're almost all sailboats. You don't have like a lot of power-driven vessels out there because of just cost prohibitive.
Range,
And these
yeah.
kind of things, you just run into range. But one day when you can get there, get the range out of your lithium to get there, then you wonder why mess with this whole big old stick on my boat and
Because
everything
it's
that goes
awesome.
with it. I know. See, I think
agree.
so, too.
It's because that's often because there's
But you
nothing
might-
better than
but you
shutting
might-
off anything that
I
makes
know.
noise and feeling the boat start to move because of nature.
Well, those engines
You know-
might start getting real quiet.
Well,
humming
I
along.
might agree that a electric motor might be nice to have a quiet extra propulsion, but I still feel like I would want the hum to go away.
But right now, energy density wise, I mean, we're just still
It's just there.
so
It's not there.
far.
It's
Look at the
there,
energy
right.
density of fossil fuels compared to lithium, and it's,
It's
I mean,
nowhere.
factors.
Yeah.
It's way
Yep.
way off. So we're
Good. So
you
the
know,
cells aren't going anywhere.
We're working our
immediately.
way there, but yeah, sales will be around.
so
for a
next
while.
episode after I get back from Mets, I think I'll have more information to share on what's in the horizon.
Oh, see, I
One-
forget. You're like so plugged in that when I ask you that question, you're like, well, there's NDAs, and stuff I can't say.
I'm going to a trade show. next
So you're
week.
not just like pontificating.
For people who don't know what METS is,
Oh, yeah. What is?
It's one of the world's largest marine trade shows.
Oh,
It's
so not
held
the
in
meteorological.
Amsterdam.
Okay.
So actually, IBEX here in Tampa, we have the IBEX, which is same thing. Well, not same thing. It's
a
similar
light
to
version.
METS.
It's the U.S.
the
version.
light
US
version.
light
Yeah.
version of METS.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So after that, there will be some more stuff you can share.
Probably.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
for walking
yeah.
up and down.
Yeah,
check out
I'm
the
so
stuff.
busy with what we have going on here that I don't have time to look at what's ahead.
can imagine,
But there's
yeah.
a couple of things that, there's 2 companies now that are looking into deciphering the data that you're getting from your chart plotter. As a matter of fact, one of the companies wants to not replace it. Well, actually, they do kind of want to replace the chart plotter and take the data that it has. They feel that the information on a chart plotter is too much, and they want to deliver it to you or to the average sailor in a more understandable fashion, if you will.
I agree. That'd be awesome.
Yes.
I want a simpler.
Matter of
Yeah,
fact, we
like
have to-
like an Apple interface. Like
Yeah.
just
Kind of, exactly. And
streamlined
the
to the
one
point.
thing that they're looking at, and I think that's pretty cool, and it's all about situational awareness. If you're cruising around, and we've all done it, it's like, ooh, there's that shallow spot. I forgot about it. And you kind of turn around it. But this automation would kind of look ahead for you for that shallow spot. It would look at the radar for
that
a
makes sense.
potential
And that
target.
relevant data it
Like
highlights.
CAI. I mean,
Yeah.
that was pretty amazing. That
But-
was AI scanning not only infrared, not only vision, not only high def, but it also had software in it that read wave patterns so that a semi-submerged container would be detected because the wave patterns would change because the waves were going that way and they would split from there, whatever.
Yeah.
And when the person at the booth was telling me about that, I said, that's amazing, but like I sail fast boats. Like how far out will it look? And he goes, oh, like 3-4 miles. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
I thought he was going to say 300 or 400 yards or something.
Yeah,
but
right.
miles. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And also gets to the point where that means that I have to leave soon.
Yeah.
So that gets it to the point where they're also integrated into the autopilot. So if it's going on a track that would be in direct conflict with that submerged container, then it alters your course for a certain amount of time and then brings you back to course to go around it without ever actually telling you that there's an issue.
Whoa,
That's
crazy.
the future right
yeah,
there. Yeah,
right?
right.
Yeah, it's like your car braking for you, if you
Lane
gonna
assist,
back over
lane
someone.
assist, and cruise
Yeah.
control of the
But
yeah.
But I wonder how much that.
what you're talking about, though, is, I mean, obviously it would be great to combine that with that data. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
you're talking
but
about just a clean interface that
It's a
highlights
cleaner
relevant
interface,
data.
but also interpretation of the radar. A lot of people look at a radar and they don't understand what they're looking at,
Yep.
and they are trying to interpret that information in a different way so that most users can understand. I prefer to look at a radar because I've looked at a radar both in the air and at sea,
Yeah.
so I know what I'm looking at. So I prefer to look at the raw data, just because I'm used to it. But for most people, you look at a radar and you don't really know what you're looking at.
Yeah, most people don't fly airliners, so
Sure, and this will interpret
Yeah.
that data in a more
Okay.
cleaner fashion. Yeah.
that's sweet. Yeah, I
Um,
like the simple version. That's cool.
Yeah.
Just be like, this is what it is, man.
I'll take
Watch
a
out for
dumbed down
this.
version of radar.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
cool.
mind. Yeah.
Just
So-
let the relevant stuff pop up.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's something
Yeah.
kind of new out there that's going to be coming.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it'd be cool if it did away with a lot of the. I mean, you're probably used to seeing it like that kind of grayscale that overlaps and then it solidifies the objects that are out there. But I imagine that would kind of meter that down and then show you more specifically what you're seeing.
Sure, and I think it'll be able to identify like this is a vessel instead of watching a blob go across the screen. I mean, most
Right.
They
people can
interpret the
figure that
blob.
out, but it's like, oh, there's a boat. All right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that combined with AIS.
It'll
obviously,
combine it
is
with
gonna be
AIS for confirmation.
Hugely, yeah.
So
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, because
Yeah.
then it
Well,
has it.
I know
overlay
that
it.
even a few years ago, so I haven't been paying attention to radar output or whatever that's been happening, but I know that one of the high def radars that was put on a friend's boat, he said, man, this thing's awesome, look, and he did a screenshot and sent it to me, and I could recognize where he was at because of the radar view. I was like, are you at the slip across from Albert Wooded with and he was like, yeah. And I'm
Whoa,
like, wow.
crazy.
So like I could tell the shape of
Yeah.
the landmass and whatever. I could tell where he was at from the radar screen, not from a photo. So it's getting pretty crazy already, and that was a couple of years ago. So it's going to get better.
Right.
It's going to get better. But on that getting better, I have to go.
Yeah, man. Thanks for
So,
being on. That
Been a
was
pleasure,
awesome. Yeah,
and we'll
appreciate
see you
it.
next time.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
see you, Brian.
So there's that's what you got coming out on the horizon. This is something that people have questions, they can contact you guys. There's lots of cool stuff online pertaining to the Victron stuff that's out there. It's just something that we wanted to highlight because it's cool tech and we had the right guy here to talk about it. So yeah, thanks for filling us in on that. There's a few questions that people have had, and one of those is lithium still burning down boats?
Your phone will burn your boat before your batteries, the lithium iron phosphate. It's because
Oh,
of the
snap.
chemistry. Yeah. Or I'm more afraid of the propane on my boat than the lithium iron phosphate. So the lithium iron phosphate, there's different types of lithium batteries, and the type that is safe is the lithium iron phosphate, the Life PO4. The lithium ion in a phone, for example, like on the airliner, we actually have a special bag to put the phone in if it catches on fire, because it's really hard to stop
I
the
keep
fire.
those for my drone batteries.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, once
exactly.
they kick off,
Exactly.
you put them underwater.
Yeah.
Cobalt, is
And
that
it'll
what these
still-
are?
There's some of them have
NiCad
cobalt in them,
or the-
and
yeah.
some of them have, I don't even know all
Okay.
the chemistries,
Yeah, there's a
but
bunch. Yeah.
but there are a bunch. But the ones that are dangerous are the ones that have the most energy density and you need it
That
for a
makes
phone.
sense. Sure.
But you have a little bit more space on a boat, so you can do the lithium iron phosphate.
Okay.
And I've seen one fail where it was overcharging, and it just expanded the cells, and the case snapped. It scared me because it made a loud noise and had a bit of an acrid smell, but it didn't catch on fire, not even close.
Wow. Okay. That's
so,
cool. See,
yeah.
I thought the answer might be, well, things have stabilized on the technology side, so you're mostly okay. But to hear that there's actually this chemistry change,
And there's, I think it's the FAA. I can't remember who did the test. Somebody tried to do a test to try to catch one on fire, and they couldn't.
Yeah, several actually.
yeah.
Have
Mhm.
like
No kidding.
really
Yeah.
attempted to catch them on fire and
like,
no luck.
and the
I
phones
bet
and the laptops.
flamethrower we have right over there could do it.
Yeah.
Good luck. They tried.
Really?
Literally,
Even
they
with, like,
used
fire
put
on
them
it?
in fire to
Yeah.
see if they would.
What?
Because the whole thing they're looking for is
Sick.
thermal runaway, right? Like
Sure.
something that will burn just based on its own energy, as
Yeah,
opposed to
once it
needing an
kicks
outside
off, it
source.
just-
I mean,
right.
it'll burn on the water. It's crazy. I've dropped a lithium battery from a drill in the water, and I mean that thing. There was clearly some kind of reaction going on because it bubbled for like 30 minutes from the
Wow.
bottom.
Wow.
Like it just goes.
Yeah.
But they cannot replicate that kind of scenario with lithium iron phosphate.
And it's a physical
All right.
change too. A physical change, like piercing it or
Yep.
bending it,
Mhm.
can cause a thermal runaway reaction. As a matter of fact, we make an announcement in the back that if you lose a phone in a seat, the seats are powered, to not move your seat, to let someone come and dismantle it and get the phone, because if the
Whoa.
mechanism of the seat crushes the phone, it'll catch on fire.
Wow.
And that's
That
a
must
lot-
be an Air Canada thing. 'cause
Yeah, I've never heard that.
I've heard it
announcement.
on one
It's an
more
airline
airline.
pilot. If
Yeah.
you didn't catch that.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. But I think a misconception, or not a misconception, a real fear that people should have, or respect for lithium, should be that the installation needs to be done in such a way that you're
Yes.
harnessing the power, because lithium is far, far, far more powerful than lead acid or AGM. You have to, you absolutely could cause a fire, not the batteries themselves catching fire, but
Like a
something
dead
else to
short
catch
or
on fire
something. Yeah.
if it's installed incorrectly. But in the same way that other battery technology causes fires,
Yeah.
except it's more power, so you have to respect it more.
Correct. So resistance. If there's a loose connection, I've seen oftentimes stainless steel washers in between a bus bar and a lug. That's a big no-no. Anything that causes resistance in a high energy system like we design it'll heat up quite
Okay.
rapidly.
Yeah. So the
Um,
stakes are getting higher for the DIY person when it comes to lithium.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. If
I mean, it's not like you can't do it,
No,
but it's just
exactly.
you need to know a little bit more, maybe what you're
Yeah.
Did
doing.
that make sense what he said about the washer between a lug and a bus bar?
Yeah, it's creating resistance, right?
Right.
And it's such high
So
energy.
the lug,
it just,
that is the press thing on the end of the wire, needs to make good contact with the bus bar. And for some reason, I don't know why people put washers in there, because there's washers included with the nut. The washer goes under the nut if there is
yeah.
one.
And the washer is stainless steel, and stainless steel is not a good conductor.
Right.
And they'll heat up significantly.
yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, just building up resistance.
We have
Yeah.
a FLIR camera, and you'll pick them out right away.
You guys use a FLIR camera?
Mhm.
Oh, I wanna
So
play
we
with
can
that.
analyze after an install and see, and you load the system up and see if there's any hot spots to make sure.
It's a
that-
quick and dirty way of doing it. You got to load every single circuit up, so it's kind of hard to do. But it's a quick check to make sure that
to look for any
you know.
glaring errors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or when you show up on a vessel and there's a problem, you can look and sometimes you can find it,
Yeah. Okay.
and you'll see evidence of it on the wires as well. There'd be discoloration of the
Yeah,
the,
you kind of see it like on that jacket or whatever. You
Yeah.
start to see that
Yeah.
yellowing maybe or
And
whatever's.
I mean, all I
frowning.
know, not all lugs are the same, right? In terms of how you lug the lug onto the cable. I mean, it's a crimping process, and we have very expensive lug tools that do this for us electrically, but not everyone's going to buy a $3,500 tool
Sure.
to do that. But you still have to make sure you have a really good contact. We should do a video on that sometime
Yeah.
where
That'd
we
be
should do
cool.
some pull testing
It's a
and
pull
show
test, yeah.
because that's literally how you test them. Is you,
Oh, yeah.
you do your
Let's do
lug
that.
and it needs to hold up to a certain pound rating, otherwise it's not good enough. And it's not that it's not good enough because it doesn't hold. It's not good enough because the fact that it's got poor contact is going to cause resistance. It's going to cause heat. Could cause a fire or a short. Yeah.
Okay, that's sweet. All right, so that's less of an issue. Then someone asked me that in the comments on a different video. I think in relation to the Leopard 50, and I just like, man, if I would have, when the first Tesla caught on fire at an intersection, if you would have only bought stock in the company at that point, because that just becomes rarer and rarer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
I mean,
who knows what their
it used to
chemistry
be
is.
the number one question 3 or 4 years ago that I would get.
Yeah.
But now even insurance companies are starting to adopt it. And now ABYC produced a recommendation. It used to be TE13, but now it's E13 for, like, there's a recommendation for lithium installations. So people are.
Didn't you help in
accepting
writing
it.
that? Didn't you help?
No.
You were. I thought you were on some kind of advisory panel with the batteries. At one
No,
point.
no, just the Arcos.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's just my head
Yeah.
making stuff up.
Yeah.
Well, Brian just left. Now we get to the questions. I'm like, I had a question for Brian about deck collars I saw him working on, but I'll save that for next time. We talked about what's cutting edge. So people ask, why does the state of charge not match what is going into their battery bank? Does that question even make sense?
I think I talked about it a little bit earlier,
Okay.
where if you stay in that middle range.
That's
and
pertaining
you
to that.
can't-
Okay.
Yeah, that's pertaining to that.
I think another one you get fairly frequently, though, is people will look at their solar array and say, hey, I have a 2 kilowatt solar array, just round numbers, but I'm only seeing 1,000 watts coming in right now.
A lot
I only
of
see 1,000 watts coming in. What's up? Where's the other 500 watts or 700 watts going? And people don't, I think, understand that. And because they're looking at the screen that shows them, but they're not understanding that there's draws going out, right?
There's that. So it could be in float.
Yep.
But you're using 1,000 watts on your boat, and it's pulling 1,000 watts from the solar, and I'm only getting 1,000 watts, but you're only using 1,000 watts, and your batteries don't need it. So yes, sure.
Right.
And when that happens, I'm not sure how this all works with Victron, but some panels will be 0, and other panels will be producing.
I've seen that.
So there's and I've seen it a few times, and I think it's just how the logic in Victron does it. But
Right.
so that's not to be alarmed there, because they're not going to share all at the same
Right.
load.
And I think sometimes people forget, too, that they'll look at the amps going into their batteries and say, hey, I'm producing this many watts, but there's only this many amps going in, forgetting the fact that they have 2 fridges running and their, water heaters kicked in for a few minutes or something like that. And so it's not going to show the flow in and out is in one place, really.
In fact, there's no flow, and that's a misconception I hear often as well is, oh, so my solar panels are going to go through the MPPT, they're going to charge my battery, and then from my battery, they're going to go to my inverter and then to my fridge. And it's just, when there's energy in the system, it's just going to take it from the sources.
Okay.
So if you're steady at 13.4 volts, if you see 1,000 watts coming from your solar, it's not going in the batteries. The batteries are in a kind of an equilibrium at that voltage. It's just going to go straight to your source, to your.
I remember first
appliance.
understanding that when
appliance.
he explained that to me, I don't know,
I didn't
a
know,
year
yeah.
or 2 ago, and I remember going,
Makes sense, right? Yeah.
because the sources
I
just
only
use
just
whatever is
now learned
available,
that.
and what's most readily available
Yeah.
is the stuff being produced.
Energy-
Yeah. What needs it now?
It doesn't care where it comes from. I think you said that to me, or it doesn't
Care
the
where it comes
source.
from. No,
or,
it's
yeah.
this analogy works well to explain it, but it doesn't always apply for the whole explanation of DC electricity. But if you think of it as pressure, kind of like a plumbing system, and the batteries are the tank, and the pressure is the voltage. If you have an appliance that pulls energy, in other words, you have a faucet, you open the faucet, there's going to be a drain of pressure in the system. Well, now you have a solar panel over here. Oh, there's a drain in pressure. I'm going to add some more pressure so that I can supply that faucet. But the pressure number that battery bank is looking for hasn't changed, because the solar panel is providing the pressure
That makes
to
sense.
that tap.
It doesn't
so
have
it's
to
just
go through the
flowing
tank.
No.
It can bypass the tank and go straight
Yeah,
to
straight
the device.
to the need. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
So the bus bars are almost like the meeting point for me in my head, where all the electrons
Yeah, it's
come
like
in,
a
right?
it's like a plenum. It's
Yeah.
with all the hoses come in and
Because in my head, I had the classic view where the solar had to go into the battery, then go from the battery to
Absolutely,
the bus bar
what
to
I
the
thought,
device.
yeah.
Whereas that bus bar is where all the energy meets, and it can flow into the bank, it can flow to the sources.
Sweet.
and it
Yeah.
flows both ways.
Yeah.
So if let's say you're at 13.4 and all of a sudden the solar kicks on and there's a lot of sun and it provides let's not say 13.4, let's say 13.2, which that's not going to mean anything to anyone, but anyway.
Yeah. 13.2 is where I was landing in my head.
So let's say
Well,
the battery
13.4 is fully charged.
Let's say the
right?
batteries
Yeah.
are at 50%.
Okay.
And let's say they're at 13.2.
Mhm.
If you increase the voltage above 13.2, there is going to be a flow of energy into the batteries.
Okay.
If you decrease that voltage below 13.2, there's energy going to be flowing out of the batteries.
Okay.
So the higher you can increase the voltage from all the appliances, the faster you're going to charge the batteries. And I guess that's kind of a bad explanation, because the more current flows, the less voltage differential there's going to be, like especially with alternators. But let's just say it that you increase the voltage, the current's going to flow to the batteries, and then when you have a big inverter that wants to draw the energy, it's going to pull the energy, and then the voltage is going to sag because it's pulling all that energy out of the battery. But it's not. It doesn't go there first and come out and go back. It's not a. It doesn't have to go there first.
Yeah, it's not like a.
As a matter of fact,
that makes sense.
you could, and in some cases I've seen it. It does happen. Let's say you blow a fuse or you turn off the battery switch, and all of a sudden the light comes on the boat. You're actually direct feeding the lights on the boat from the solar or whatever, the fridge or whatever. You could see the panel light up. So it's possible to direct feed it from other sources and other chargers. It doesn't work well because it's not designed to do that. It's designed to be a charger and charge the battery. But, you know, as an example,
That's how that happens.
you don't need a battery. You can.
Yeah, just bypass it and go direct.
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
I mean, not on purpose. That's just
yeah,
something that
it's
happens.
just as an example of how it can happen.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
This rabbit hole goes deep.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Like, it just doesn't end. And that's where I just have to appeal to the dozens of you out there listening. There are dozens of them. You got to start somewhere,
All
man.
7 dozen
All
of
of our
you.
family
Yes.
members.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's all our. That's funny. Yeah, you have to make your kids some YouTube account so we can get
Right.
those extra 2 likes. Both of you guys get 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, we have Brian fabrication, Steven rigging, and Andre on electrical. So you guys, and they do all kinds of other stuff, you know, right outside those fields, but they're trained marine pros in those areas. When you guys have questions, please let us know in the comments below. There's going to be lots of opportunities in the future when this show goes live on YouTube. You'll be able to interact with us that way. That's going to be real fun. We're going to have a number to call in, all kinds of neat stuff. Like I just said, we got to start somewhere. So please leave comments below and ask questions. And that'll just really help us be able to get good content to you guys. You'll also see links below of the tools and parts and things that the yacht rigger likes to use around the yard whenever they're putting boats together that are out there giving us our adventures and keeping our dreams afloat. Clicking any of those links gets us a little bit of affiliate money coming back to us, which keeps this content flowing to you. So we thank you for checking out those links and doing any purchases there. It doesn't cost you anything. And we will see you guys next time on the On Deck channel.
All right, thanks.
Sweet.
Held it.